Welcome to Moonlight Stories. My name is Brandan, your host. Before we step into the quiet halls of Ashwood House series, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop a comment below. Pour yourself something warm, be it a cup of tea, coffee, or something with a little extra spirit. Dim the lights, settle in, and let's begin our mystery. Widow of Frederick Ellery Part 3. There are books a house should never contain, not because they are evil, but because they are true. And truth, when pressed between pages and shelved behind walls, becomes dangerous. The ledger was bound in oil-black leather, no title on its spine. It didn't sit on any shelf. It wasn't catalogued in Clara's records or mentioned in any of Frederick's blueprints. It was hidden, not deep, just intentionally misplaced. She found it in the most innocuous of places, beneath a floorboard in a linen closet no one ever opened. A thin seam, no lock, as if it wanted to be found now, after all this time. She didn't open it at first. She sat with it, let the weight of it rest in her lap like something breathing shallowly in sleep. It hummed, the same low tone the house had begun to echo in recent weeks. A harmonic note led beneath floor creaks and wall groans and pipe trembles. She listened. Then she opened the first page. Blank. So was the second. And the third. Then, on the fourth, a line, scrawled in ink that hadn't dried properly even after all these years. Every blueprint is a confession. Then nothing for several more pages. And then, slowly, it began. Not journal entries, not records, but instructions. Impossible instructions. Designs for things that could not exist. Rooms with no doors. Hallways that circled back to their own beginning. A staircase designed to move between dimensions, without a single step. All written in Frederick's handwriting. But this wasn't the Frederick Ellery we knew. This was someone else entirely. He spoke of the house as if it were a machine, a mechanism for memory, yes, but also for containment. There were names, dates, symbols, and margins filled with corrections written in a different hand. Hayes, I think. Clara. She had found the ledger once, and tried to rewrite it. What had she seen? What had she understood that made her try to alter the very foundation of Frederick's words? And why had she vanished? Because that was becoming clearer now. Clara didn't die. She didn't leave. She was taken. Or worse, absorbed. The ledger detailed structures within the house that were not made of brick or wood, but of memory loops. Rooms constructed to feed on emotional resonance, to trap a consciousness inside moments of regret, guilt, or longing. Prisons, elegant ones. Rooms that would appear to mourn with you, even as they rewrote you. And at the center of all of it, a symbol, drawn repeatedly, more of a glyph than a letter. Circular, intersecting, not architectural, alchemical. This wasn't design. It was ritual. Frederick hadn't built the house as a sanctuary. He had built it as a vessel, a place to hold something. And now the ledger asked one final question, scrawled in the trembling hand of a man who no longer knew if he was drawing or confessing. If the house remembers everything, what happens when it remembers me? The page beneath was blank, but she turned it anyway, and found a single line pressed into the paper so faintly it could only be read in angled light. I was never meant to leave the blueprint. The house creaked, not loudly, just expectantly, because now the question wasn't what the house was. It was who built it, and why he was still inside. Some doors don't open. They accept you. The ink on her hands hadn't dried from the ledger, a shade of blue so deep it bordered on black. It clung to the lines of her palm, stained the edge of her wrist, soaked into the threads of her cuff. She tried to wash it off, but it wasn't ink anymore. It was authorization, and the house recognized it. That's when the door appeared, at the end of a hallway that had always seemed a little too long, past the servants' passage, past the narrow stairwell that ended in nothing, past the boarded-up frame that no one remembered framing. There it was. No knob, no keyhole, just wood and a strange, shimmering grain. And a mark in the center. That same glyph from the ledger. A design within a design. She didn't knock. She just placed her palm against it. And the door accepted her. It didn't swing open. It peeled back, like skin revealing something that had waited too long to be exposed. The room beyond was unlit. Not dark, just undecided. The walls hadn't decided if they were walls yet. The air was thick, but not stale. More like atmosphere adjusting to a new presence. And in the middle of it all, on a pedestal of stone and polished steel, was the original blueprint. Frederick's first. The true one. Not the public draft. Not the altered versions Clara tried to edit. Not even the modified sketches found behind the library wall. This was pre-language. It was drawn not with pencil or pen, but direction. The lines moved. Not animated. Living. And the ink, it glowed faintly. The same color as the stain on her hand. She stepped closer, and the paper responded. It folded inwards, showing angles that broke geometry. Rooms that existed only when you thought of them. And in the margin, a note, written in Frederick's hand, clearer than anything he'd left before. The house is not a building. It is a body. Memory is the bone. Guilt is the marrow. Music is the blood. The architect is its heart. She stared at the words, then down at her own hands. The stain was spreading. Up her wrist, her forearm, her throat, not consuming her, changing her, not into something else, but into something closer to what the house needed. And suddenly, I understood. Frederick never intended to leave behind a haunted structure. He intended to transfer, not his soul, not his mind, but his pattern, his thoughts, his logic, his obsessions, woven into the walls, encoded into the architecture, a resonant frequency of self. The house didn't remember him. It was him. And now, it was asking if she was willing to take on the next layer, not by possession, but by inheritance, because something was coming, something built into the very foundation, a failsafe, a second stage, one that required an architect, inside. And the blueprint began to shift again, faster now, as if sensing time was running short. The symbols twisted. A new room appeared, one that hadn't existed in any version before. The name of the room? Scrawled messily along the edge. Where he waits. And beside it, her name, written in ink that was still wet. It was a room no blueprint should contain. And yet, there it was, drawn in ink that refused to dry, staring back at her from the page like a dare. Where he waits. She traced the outline with her fingertip. It pulsed beneath her skin, not metaphorically, literally, as if the house had veins now, and she had found an artery. The path to the room wasn't linear. No staircase led to it. No corridor pointed the way. It required something else. Recognition. She had to know the room existed before it could exist. And once she did, once the words "where he waits" settled into her thoughts, the house shifted. Not all at once. Just enough. Walls that had been solid turned soft at the edges. Doorways bent at angles that defied carpentry. The floorboards beneath her feet carried her steps forward, not just physically, but intentionally. And then she saw it. A simple wooden door. Too small to be grand. Too old to be recent. It bore no markings now. Just a sense that something had been etched there once, and had either faded with time or had been forcibly erased. She hesitated. For the first time in this long unraveling, she hesitated. Because part of her already knew. What lay beyond wasn't Frederick. Not anymore. It was what he'd become. She opened the door and stepped inside. The room was round. No corners. No shadow. No windows. Just a single chair, facing a blank wall. And in that chair, a man, or the shape of one. He didn't turn. He didn't breathe. But he was aware. I could feel it. So could she. Frederick, she asked. The figure shifted slightly. A slow, deliberate motion, as if remembering how bodies moved. When he spoke, it wasn't with a voice. It was with architecture. The walls responded in tremors, in musical groans through wood and plaster. And in those vibrations, I heard it. I waited. I listened. You heard me. She stepped closer. His form flickered, not ghost-like, more like a blueprint updating itself in real time. He was many versions of himself at once. The young man obsessed with perfect angles. The middle-aged recluse drawing symbols in candlelight. The half-faded echo speaking through unfinished beams. And in all of them, a hunger. Not for power, for continuity. He looked at her, really looked, and when he spoke again, the words came from the room itself. The house needed a new architect, one who would finish the song. She swallowed hard. You built this to trap memories, she said. No, he answered, to survive them. And then the truth came. Frederick Ellery had been chosen, not by people, but by resonance. The first time he drew a perfect spiral at age 7, the house heard it. The first time he built a model that looped back on itself, the house felt it. It had been reaching across time and material for someone who could host its memory. Frederick hadn't built the house. He'd been built by it. And now, so was she. The ink on her skin glowed. Her pulse matched the rhythm of the room. And Frederick, whatever remained of him, stood. Not fully, just enough. You can stop this, she said. No, he whispered. You can. And then, the ceiling began to crack. Not from above, from within. A fracture across memory. A fissure in the song. Because something else had woken. Something buried deeper than even Frederick had dared chart. And the house, now conscious, now singing, was preparing to face it. But it couldn't do it alone. Not anymore. She reached out her hand. Not to touch him. To take the blueprint. It dissolved into her palm. And the room went still. Not silent. Just waiting. Because the next chapter wouldn't be written by the man who built the house, but by the woman who finally understood why. Some parts of the house only awaken after a name is spoken aloud. Some only after it is understood. And now that she had accepted the blueprint, absorbed it, the house opened a memory it had kept sealed for decades. The floor beneath her feet. It didn't creak or crack or collapse. It recalled, not just the weight of footsteps, but the intention behind them. The floor remembered who had walked here, not when, but why. And the why mattered. Each plank shifted, slightly, humming with a warmth that wasn't heat but recognition. Beneath the parlor, a new descent revealed itself. Not a staircase, not a trapdoor, something older. A corridor grown from repetition, shaped by the echo of choices made and choices avoided. She stepped downward. Each footfall rang not like sound, but like memory played back through wood grain. The house was showing her its past, not in images, in experience. She felt it first, a cold that wasn't temperature, a sorrow that wasn't hers. Then came the sound, faint at first, a woman's voice, not calling, not weeping, singing, soft, circular, haunting, the same melody she'd found in the lower harmonics of the house weeks ago. But this time, not fragmented, whole. And she knew it was Clara, still here, still singing, still echoing through the resonant loops Frederick had built to preserve her. Not out of grief, out of necessity, because Clara had discovered the truth. Not about Frederick, about what lived beneath him, what he had been protecting the world from, not by building walls, but by building containment. The house wasn't made to trap ghosts. It was made to hold something worse. And Clara had stepped too deep into the design, The memory of her voice spiraled toward the far wall, and there, etched into the stone below the floorboards, were 5 words. This place is a heart. It didn't mean emotional. It meant living, beating, pumping. And now, for the first time, the floor spoke back. Not in words, in impact. Each board beneath her reverberated with something buried. A moment. Frederick, the first time he realized the house could respond to him. Clara, the moment she turned back when she should have run. And deeper, older, someone else. A presence not seen, not spoken. A root memory, not of a person, but of a thing. A decision. The house had been modeled on something ancient. A design passed down not in books, but in instincts, dreams, obsessions. And now she stood in its nexus. The place beneath all places. A chamber not designed by Frederick or discovered by Clara. A place the house had kept hidden even from itself. Until now, the walls began to pulse, and she realized it wasn't music. It was a heartbeat, and it was getting faster. Not out of fear, out of awakening. She stepped forward, and the blueprint in her skin lit up. New lines, new rooms, new warnings. Because the house wasn't done remembering. It was just now beginning to understand itself. And buried in its floor, beneath history, beneath names, beneath ink and guilt, was a presence beginning to stay. And it remembered her. There are places even memory dares not go, because remembering is a form of summoning, and some things should remain unsummoned. The chamber below the floor had no dimensions, no corners, no boundaries. It was not a room in the architectural sense. It was a space held in trust, not by beams or columns, but by intent. She had passed the threshold not with her body, but with her blueprint. The one etched into her now, the one still shifting beneath her skin. And in this place, beneath all design, beneath even Frederick's laid madness, there was pulse. Steady, powerful, ancient, not biological, not mechanical, something other, the heartbeat of the house. But it didn't belong to the structure. It belonged to what was trapped inside it. Not an entity, not a ghost, not even a memory, a presence, older than language, older than shape. It had taken many names through history, always dwelling in the background of great makers, architects, composers, inventors. It fed on obsession, on the need to create, on the drive to build that which should not be built. And it whispered promises to those like Frederick, to those like her. But it was never content to stay hidden. And now, it sensed she had opened the ledger, read the blueprint, accepted the house. The pulse quickened, and the walls began to bleed. Not with blood, with ink, blue-black, thick, sliding downward from beams that had never been cut, from ceilings that had never been drawn. It spelled nothing, but it meant everything, because the presence had one need: to be real. It used architects. It wore them like scaffolding. Frederick had kept it contained by embedding himself into the walls, offering his mind as a barrier. But now, he was fading, his echo thinning, his last protection. The ink moved toward her, not like a tide, like fingers, exploring, seeking. Finish the design, it said, not aloud, in resonance. Finish me. She shook her head. This is not creation, she whispered. This is infection. And the room responded. The heartbeat stuttered. The walls shook. Not with rage, with hope. Because the house, it wasn't aligned with the presence. Not fully. It had been tricked into holding it. And now, it was beginning to resist. Because she had rewritten the blueprint, just enough. Inserted fragments of herself into the margins. Choices Frederick never gave it. Mercy, clarity, endings. And now, with the presence pressing against her skin, offering her vision beyond vision, power beyond design, she chose no. and the chamber cracked. From its center, a sound like a bell ringing backward, and through the fracture came light. Thin at first, then widening, a slit in time, a path not drawn but remembered. One last note in the house's long, broken melody, a chance to unbuild, to collapse the structure not of walls, but of intention. But to do it, she'd have to go deeper, into the heart, into the original decision, into the moment Frederick said yes to the voice beneath the house, and stop it before the blueprint ever began. Because what the presence feared most was forgetting. Every building begins with a decision, not measurements, not materials, not sketches or models or permits. A choice to create something where there was once nothing. And if you go far enough back in any haunted house, any ruin, any monument or madhouse, you will find that moment. The first thought, the first what if, the first time someone stood in an empty field, or on a bare floor, or before a blank page, and chose yes. That's where she had to go now, not just deeper into the house, but before it, before ink, before Frederick, before the presence fed its first word to a young architect sketching impossible arches by candlelight. The house had shown her a crack, an opening, a fracture in memory, a door before design. She passed through it. It didn't feel like movement. It felt like surrender. And on the other side, there was not a house. There was a table, wooden, small, unremarkable, and a young man sitting at it. Frederick, barely 20, before the beard, before the strange journals, before the symmetries, before the voice. He had a blank sheet of parchment in front of him, and a fountain pen filled with blue-black ink. His hand hovered, then hesitated, then drew the first line, a spiral, too perfect for a beginner's hand. It didn't come from him. It came through him. She watched. This was the moment, the origin. The presence was already whispering to him. She could hear it, behind his breath, in the scratch of the pen, in the urge to draw. It wasn't words yet, just suggestions, curves that should not fit together, angles that mirrored thought patterns, ratios that repeated like choruses. Frederick leaned in, possessed, but not unwilling. She stepped forward. Though she wasn't part of this memory, the room noticed her. The pen trembled. Frederick paused. He looked up, eyes scanning nothing. But she saw it. Doubt. A flicker. A question. Is this me? Or something else? She reached out. Not toward him. Toward the ink. The vial shimmered. Wavered. Reacted. It knew her. It remembered the rejection. The refusal. The path not taken. And now, it had a choice too. She whispered. Not aloud, but through the blueprint etched in her skin. You don't have to finish it. And in that second, Frederick blinked, looked down, and closed the ink. He didn't spill it. He didn't throw it away. He simply put the pen down. The spiral remained, but it never continued. The first draft was never written. And in that moment, reality cracked. Not violently, not with thunder, but with quiet. The house above her, the one she had walked through, room by room, echo by echo, shivered, as if waking from a long, dense dream. The walls softened, the ink receded, the memory dimmed, not gone, just unchosen, and her body lightened. The blueprint faded from her skin. The resonance let go. She was no longer its vessel, because now there was nothing left to carry. The door behind her, the one before the first draft, began to close. And as it did, she turned back one last time. Frederick was gone, but the table remained, empty, waiting, not for madness, but for something honest, something chosen. And in the void where the house had once stood, there was only silence, the kind that comes after the last note, and the knowing that you've finally finished the song. After silence, there is forgetting, Not the careless forgetting of lost keys or birthdays, but the deep forgetting, the kind that protects. When the house unbuilt itself, it did not vanish. It withdrew, and in its absence, a library emerged. She didn't remember walking into it. There was no door, no path, no map, only the sense that something still unfinished had curled itself around her. A final echo in need of resolve. The room was tall, unreasonably so, and the shelves, they moved. Not randomly, not chaotically. They flowed like tides, responding not to motion, but to memory. Books floated, whispering to each other in spines that bent language. No titles, no authors, just remains. Fragments of stories never told. Rooms never designed. Blueprints too dangerous to complete. It was a library of abandonments, of the ideas that had been rejected before they could infect the world. And it remembered her, not by name, but by wound. She had erased a house from reality. That left a scar, on space, on thought, on time. And this place had opened to welcome it, to house what could no longer be structured. A single book floated toward her, thin, unmarked, weightless. When she opened it, the pages were blank, except for one word. Ellery. Not Frederick, just the name. No first, no last, just the concept of Ellery. The idea that someone must always be listening, must always be drawing, must always be tempted to finish the song. She closed the book. The library responded. A low shudder passed through the spines of 1,000 forgotten thoughts. Because something had changed. The presence, the one beneath the architect's pulse. It hadn't been destroyed. It had been postponed. Every generation births a new maker. Every genius flirts with madness. Every blueprint whispers, just one more improvement, just one more layer, just one more line. And now that she had walked through the spiral and come back whole, she was being asked, will you guard the threshold? She did not answer with words. She placed the book back on the shelf, turned, and walked toward the edge of the library. There was no exit, only choices. She took the one that felt like leaving, and as the shelves drifted behind her, soft, gentle, remembering but not clutching, one final whisper followed her out. As long as someone remembers the design, the door is never truly closed. Some maps do not show where you are. They show where you almost went. They are made of near misses, missteps, forgotten turns. Not of roads, but of regrets. And now, as she stepped beyond the shifting library, that's what unfolded before her. A map, not inked on parchment, but burned into space. A soft glow on a black horizon. Floating shapes that pulsed as she looked at them. Every mark on this map was something she hadn't done. Every path was an echo of a step she almost took. She floated there for a long moment, watching, where she might have followed Frederick into the blueprint without question, where she might have accepted the voice in the walls, where she might have finished the design, where she might have become the architect. Each potential path shimmered, alluring and sad, but they all ended in collapse. Some slow, some sudden, some beautiful, all inevitable. She realized something then. The presence hadn't needed to win. It only needed to be allowed. Every yes, given in curiosity, pride, ambition. It added a new room to the house, a new page to the plan. But she had done something different. She had stopped, looked away, said no, and that had broken the sequence. The map before her was proof, not of where she'd gone, but where the house would never reach. She stepped forward. The map changed. It retracted. The paths curled inward, folding like petals. Not vanishing, just closing. And in the center of that collapse, a single point of light remained. A fixed point. The place from which all design had begun. But it wasn't a location. It was a person. Frederick Ellery. Not the myth. Not the architect. not the haunted genius, the man. And for the first time, she saw him clearly, not through the filter of madness or ambition, but as a soul who had made a single mistake. He had listened too long. She saw the moment he could have walked away, and didn't. And that, more than the ink or the voice or the blueprint, is what birthed the house. That one decision. She stepped into that moment, a recreation of the second before intention, and whispered something into it. Not a warning, not a lesson, just a question. What if you chose silence? And the light pulsed, soft, steady, then dimmed, not extinguished, fulfilled. And the map? It folded completely, leaving behind no path, only presence. Hers, unafraid and free. Some echoes do not return. They leave the mouth, the wall, the page, and vanish, not because they were weak, but because they were heard. And once a sound is truly heard, deep in the marrow of the one who listens, it no longer needs to repeat. Frederick Ellery had become an echo of a man, of a maker, of a mistake. And for years, decades, lifetimes, that echo had clung to the spaces he left behind. The house, the blueprints, the false door at the bottom of the spiral stair, the scratch in the wall that wasn't just wear and tear, but a message, a plea. Now that she had unbuilt what he created, unwritten what he designed, refused what he once accepted, there was only one sound left to listen for. His last breath, not the one from his lungs, the one from his soul. She found it in the room that was never on any blueprint, a room shaped like a sigh. No furniture, no windows, just a faint, residual hum. She stepped inside, and the door behind it didn't close. It ceased to exist. Inside was the impression of Frederick, not his image, not his ghost, just the weight of all the things he never said. It hovered in the middle of the space, like a half-finished sentence. She waited, not speaking, not invoking, not demanding, just present. And that was enough. The room responded. The air rippled. The hum sharpened. And then, at last, a whisper. I didn't know how to stop. Not an excuse. A confession. She replied, simply, "You do now." The space trembled. Softly, not with fear, with release. The echo of Ellery exhaled. Not in defeat, in completion. He was no longer repeating himself, because someone else had answered the house, had refused its seduction, had turned the design into a warning, not a blueprint. As the room faded, she felt it. The last line in the last drawing dissolving. No more revisions, no more drafts, just stillness, not emptiness, stillness. The kind that says, this is where it ends. This is where you are free. Some echoes do not return. They leave the mouth, the wall, the page, and vanish, not because they were weak, but because they were heard. And once a sound is truly heard, deep in the marrow of the one who listens, it no longer needs to repeat. Frederick Ellery had become an echo of a man, of a maker, of a mistake. And for years, decades, lifetimes, that echo had clung to the spaces he left behind. The house, the blueprints, the false door at the bottom of the spiral stair, the scratch in the wall that wasn't just wear and tear, but a message, a plea. Now that she had unbuilt what he created, unwritten what he designed, refused what he once accepted, there was only one sound left to listen for. His last breath. Not the one from his lungs, the one from his soul. She found it in the room that was never on any blueprint, a room shaped like a sigh. No furniture, no windows, just a faint, residual hum. She stepped inside, and the door behind her didn't close. It ceased to exist. Inside was the impression of Frederick, not his image, not his ghost, just the weight of all the things he never said. It hovered in the middle of the space, like a half-finished sentence. She waited, not speaking, not invoking, Not demanding, just present. And that was enough. The room responded. The air rippled. The hum sharpened. And then, at last, a whisper. I didn't know how to stop. Not an excuse. A confession. She replied, simply, "You do now." The space trembled. Softly, not with fear, with release. The echo of Ellery exhaled. Not in defeat. In completion. He was no longer repeating himself. Because someone else had answered the house. Had refused its seduction. Had turned the design into a warning, not a blueprint. As the room faded, she felt it. The last line in the last drawing dissolving. No more revisions. No more drafts. Just stillness. Not emptiness. Stillness. The kind that says, "This is where it ends. This is where you are free." And so, dear listener, you followed her through walls that should never have stood, through ink that should never have been poured, through blueprints that were never truly hers, until at last, you arrived where all haunted houses end, not with a scream, but with a silence. Thank you for listening to the Ashwood House. And remember, some doors don't close behind you. They just stop being real. Like, comment, and subscribe if you like the series.